What's up, Ann?
Welcome back.
Welcome back to the Best Foot Forward podcast. I'm Vicky Vuong from Cestlavic, and this is...
I'm Ann Duskus of Studio Duskus, and I am a footwear designer and consultant in San Francisco.
Yes. So today, I've actually just come back to the studio to find Ann still working since the holidays.
I'm still living in 2021, guys.
Yeah. And I'm like, she's like knee deep in a project that she's like really wanting to finish. And so I think today, like a really good topic we could talk about is creative burnout. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's two things. I keep thinking about it, and I'm thinking that there's creative block, and then there's also just burnout, and you know.
Okay, creative burnout versus creative block. What is the difference?
For me, burnout is just like, I think it's intertwined, but it could be separate. Burnout for me is just like being so tired and exhausted and just done with whatever it is. Whereas creativity, it could be like, I can be fully energized, but then I don't have an idea that I want to execute, or I'm not inspired by something, you know? So what are you feeling right now?
So it's interesting because typically, like, you know, before we record our podcast, the day before we'll talk about kind of like brainstorm on like, okay, what are we going to talk about today? Mm-hmm. So we can like go home separately, sleep on it, and think about what we want to say in the morning. Yeah. And so I know yesterday when we brought up this topic, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. It's relevant to what I'm doing. But then I got home and I started thinking about it. I was like, I mean, is it though? Is it relevant to what I'm doing right now? Because I don't necessarily feel burnt out creatively.
Okay.
And I guess like on paper, like from the outside looking in, mm-hmm. And granted, like I don't feel like I've been complaining a lot, hopefully, but maybe I don't know because I'm the person that's doing it. But like I feel like, again, this is where I think it's so blessed to be in a position to where I can feel this way. And I was reflecting on it last night, and I was like, you know, so I'm not feeling creative burnout. Am I feeling burnout? Mm-hmm. Like how do I really feel? Yeah. And I think maybe it's none of that for me right now, mm-hmm. which is really interesting because, you know, because when I think about, if I just think about burnout, mm-hmm. And I think about when I've experienced that in the past. Yeah. And I think when I've experienced that was when I was working, you know, corporate, mm-hmm. or not even corporate, even my last job, you know, where I was like working for more of like a design studio, and it was like a constant flow of work, mm-hmm. which is maybe not too different from what I'm doing right now. There's always a constant flow of work, which is great. Mm-hmm. But then I think the difference is a constant flow of work for myself versus a constant flow of work working for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And so while like I'm so like you said earlier, I'm knee deep in this project, I'm working for a client, in a weird way, like I've been working on it for a long time, you know, so it feels like I will be reaching a burnout stage, mm-hmm. but I don't quite feel burnout because I'm like, I'm enjoying it. Mm-hmm. And I think what I'm more feeling is the stress of the timeline, mm-hmm. and the time that I have left to finish this project. Right. So I think I'm feeling more stressed about that versus like actually feeling burned out, because mm-hmm. I don't feel burned out. Because I remember when I felt like burned out before is when, you know, it's like I have to design like 60 SKUs mm-hmm. in a course of 3 weeks, which is like insane, you know? So it's like constantly churning out designs and like working your brain, mm-hmm. you know, that mental focus that you have to have. Like by the end of it, I'm worn out, mm-hmm. you know? Yeah. And so I think like I don't necessarily feel like I'm burnt out right now, mm-hmm. Creatively or physically. Is really more of a time thing. Right.
You're just in the zone, but trying to make a deadline.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And so I think they're like, again, like, other people can look at my situation and be like, oh my gosh, Ann's totally mm-hmm. getting there, you know? And I think that's probably what you're feeling for me right now, which
but
like I still
appreciate.
But
the only person that would understand is you. right? Like how you're feeling, whether you're burnt out or whether you're energized and just in the zone doing your project, right? Like I can look at you and be like, wait, she worked through Christmas holidays and New Year's and she hasn't stopped while I have been taking time off, right? And looking from the outside, of course, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, she's probably really tired. But that's, again, my assumption. And obviously you're the one that's going to tell me like, are you tired? Are you burnt out or not? And that's a good sign. It means that you're enjoying what you're doing.
Oh my gosh. Totally.
There's so much. Like you're not just working on the one project. There are so many things that you're juggling at the same time that have demanded your attention that it's like, I don't know why. I feel like my mom, because I'm like, wait, why am I assuming that you're tired or you're like, you've been working so hard that you should be exhausted from what you're doing, right? Yeah. But of course, I mean, that's a good thing. That's totally a good thing. Yeah.
So I want to hear about you though, because I love, and I'm so envious that you took some time off, like during the holidays. But I remember, you know, again, like because we work so closely together, we work in terms of like vicinity, you know, you work right across from me and I've seen you leading up through the holidays, like all the projects you had to ship out. Like at some point, did you feel, I suspect there was some creative burnout because I know some of the backstory of like the stuff that you were working on and I observed that. Yeah. But can you talk a little bit about like your, like leading up to the end of 2021, how you were feeling?
Yeah, I think I was burnt out and the burnout was creeping in. It was very slow and very like, not from one single event where I had to do like a burst. It was more just like, I couldn't get all the things that I wanted done. There were projects that came in that were a surprise and all of these things at the end led to, and I had no breaks. I had not taken a break because even my travels over the summer were a lot of go, go, go. And it wasn't like a stop and just, like we said, laying on a beach, not doing anything, a book in your hand, right? Like that's what we want to do to like completely relax. So although I took a week off over Christmas to go to Vegas, I actually was still on the road. And when I came back, I didn't rush in to come back into the studio because I was like, no, I need more time. I need more time to wind down, to completely recharge, to be ready for the new year because I think I felt it. I started feeling like I didn't have the energy to come in and just go at it, you know?
So was it more of a physical burnt out for you or a creative burnt out for you?
I think a little bit of both.
I feel like it is a little bit of both for you from what I saw.
Because like at the end of the year, I was also I was trying to grasp at like the little bits of creativity that were left of 2021. Because like right before Christmas break, I was making something that was not shoes. I was making like a nutcracker or something. I was doing arts and crafts that were completely different to kind of get my mind off of things. Yeah. Because I felt like I wasn't inspired to do another shoe right before the end of the year, right? So yeah, I think it was definitely a bit of everything.
Because I think a lot of the shoes that you worked on the latter half of 2021 are all, they weren't like fun projects for you. They were all like brand related or partnerships or client based, where like there was a demand versus like you just wanting to create on shoes on your own. And so I remember there was an instance where you're working on a few pairs of shoes for this one person and you were really struggling, and maybe is not the right word, but like you were just like, you felt challenged creatively. Like, can you talk a little bit about that? Because it seemed like that kind of touches on the creative block a little bit.
I think I was overthinking. Whenever somebody comes to me, and that was my challenge for 2021, is I wanted to kind of experiment with more original work. Or, you know, when you're working with brands, a lot of times you can't do any copyrighted characters or like themes. So you really have to think outside the box or do something that's yours originally, like your original design, your original idea. And so, like I was telling you, I don't have a background in design. So I really didn't know how to start and go about coming up with those things. And so every time I got a project, I overthought it. Like I was thinking too much, like, oh, I can't do this. I don't have an art background. I have no idea how to do this. Who the hell do I think I am, kind of thing. And so I was just sitting there and I would take so much time overthinking my capabilities, my actual work, and like whether I can actually get this job done, that took a lot out of me. So whenever I get these things, I'm like, but also, I mean, yes, I stress and like overthink these things, but I do think the best way to get over it is to gain more experience and do it over and over again. So I keep taking on those projects because I'm like, I do have to challenge myself. And every single time I do, I feel a little bit better about what I can do and what I can't do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that makes sense. Yeah, I feel like sometimes I wonder if like gaining more experience essentially means like you're practicing, you know? And, you know, that saying like, oh, practice makes perfect or something, which like, to me, there's like so many holes to like, you know, pick through like in that like statement. But I sometimes wonder if that's true, you know, because I feel like I've been practicing what I've been doing for so long. And yes, there are periods of time or like stages in the process of what I do where I feel like where I can make like where I catch that like, oh, I've gotten better at this, you know, like on your own.
Yeah.
Because again, like nobody else knows it but yourself.
Yeah.
Unless like you put, the other day my friend's like, oh, the first pair of shoes you made must have been like trash, right? And this is a good friend of mine, you know, so we're just like, yeah, like, but I'm like, actually the first pair of shoes I made wasn't trash. I mean, you know, like.
If you don't know Ann, okay, she's an overachiever. Or maybe that's not the best word, but like, you're very confident in your handy skills and your craft. So I feel like you're okay, we can't use that word, perfectionist. You're not perfectionist, but you are very, like, you're really good at it. You know, the other day you were telling me, like, I feel like if I tried to paint a pair of shoes, I could probably do a decent job. It's that, but it's like
so cocky.
Very like warranted confidence because you know what you can do, right? So even making
people crazy, you know?
What do you mean? It's like that little bit of confidence that comes through that we don't have often as Asian women. Yeah. But like, we know we're good at it. We know we can do things well with our hands, you know?
Right. It's just like, I'm just going to surprise you. I'm not going to talk about it. I forgot what the point I was trying to make here, but...
your first pair of shoes weren't shit.
Yeah. And so I think if you were to like, the point I was trying to make is like, okay, if you were to like side by side put my first pair of shoes versus like the current pair of shoes that I'm working on like next to each other, would you be able to tell which one was my first one?
Yeah.
Yes, maybe, maybe not. Like I would for sure because I can already see like, oh, I'm lasting so much better these days. And like, you know, like the turning of the lining isn't as much of a nightmare for me. But I think in terms of just like going back to like the whole like creative burned out and just physical like exhaustion, I think it's like, was there a moment where you kind of like realized that like, oh crap, like I'm actually really exhausted?
For me, that moment was when I was doing Swoosh Sundays, uploading every single Sunday for 50 weeks. And it meant I had no weekends. And it meant that during any kind of holiday season, I mean, I skipped a couple of them when I had to, but like it meant that there was that pressure of like having to hand something in, having to put something out there on social media, and that expectation that I held myself accountable for. I stopped at 49 because and I think I've done more than 50 though, but I just never posted them. But I stopped at posting 49 because I felt like that week I was forcing myself to do something I truly wasn't passionate about. Whereas from 1 to 49, it was like, oh, I was so excited about a design, or maybe not creatively, but like I held myself accountable for it and I was excited to do it. Like, I'm going to do 5 this week, right? I'm going to get it all out. And I had that energy. So whether it was like physically or mentally, I was ready for it. Whereas for week 50, I just stopped dead in my tracks and I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to post it just to post it. I don't want to sit there and paint just to paint. And I haven't come back to it yet, which I really want to this year. But that's when I felt it. I was like, oh my God, I've been worn down physically and mentally and creatively.
Right. Because then I imagine by the time you got to like 49, 50, like, were you scrambling for like, what should I paint next?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what week it was. It must have been like a Marvel week or something. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do Captain Marvel. You know, she's a female superhero. So excited about it. And then I looked at the swoosh and I was like, I don't have any inspiration. Can't do it. I don't know what to put on there.
Yeah.
And I hated every mock-up that I tried to do. I looked up so much source material and I didn't like any of it. And I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
If I don't like what I do, I don't want to force myself to do it, because who cares? At the end of the day, I'm going to wait until I find that inspiration again and then start fresh.
So, okay. Hold that thought, because I think one of the questions that we get a lot from our people is, how do you deal with the pressure of social media? Because I think, again, this ties back into, you know, now that you've done 49 swooshes, like, you have an audience that are following you for this type of content, and you feel like you have to perform because people expect that of you this week.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit more about, like, how was it difficult for you to, like, make a decision of, like, no, I'm not going to post 50 because I'm just not into it. And then 2, like, how do you confront that, like, pressure, and how do you get over that?
I feel like you got the right word, which is to confront yourself. And I think I'm saying this now because I know, but I constantly have to remind myself when I'm in this situation, which is, this is all just you talking to yourself, right? This is your ego. This is your, you know, like, you are the one that's in control of what you want to post on social media. And are there really that many people out there that are holding you accountable for what you're doing or not doing? Yeah, there might be a couple comments here and there, but in the grand scheme of things, there's nobody out there that cares as much as you do.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So at the end of the day, it's like telling yourself, well, if I don't want to do it, who's to say that I should? And then that constant reminder is what makes me feel a little bit better about myself. Like, yeah, remind yourself, like, yeah, I mean, this is my social media account. It's like you, when you said, I don't want to be, like, I changed my Instagram from a business account to a personal account. This is about me.
Yep.
What I put in my artwork is about what I want to do, not what everybody else wants to do. And the audience likes to see you doing something that you love versus you just putting it out there because you think people like to see that. Right. And I think that helps a little bit more about, like, how you wrap your mind around what you're doing and how you're, you know, structuring your social media content and what you're making, what you're creating.
So how long did you give yourself before you were ready to sort of, like, maybe I can post Swish Sundays again, you know, or maybe I can start creating again?
Yeah.
Like, how long did you need to kind of step away from it before you can look at it again?
I stepped away from it for 6 months now. So that's 6 months, and I haven't restarted it. But, you know, whenever I'm ready, I think, again, there's that, like, activation energy right before where you're like, well, I haven't done it for 6 months. When I come back, I have to come back with, like, a bang, you know? I have to do something amazing.
God,
but
that's so exhausting.
It's exhausting. Yeah,
Vicky.
but truly, I've, like, let go of that, and I'm like, no, I don't have to. I can just come back and be like, hey, this is my thing. Yeah. I started this, and I can continue doing it whenever I want to. Yeah. But there's always that, you know, that little voice in there that's like, but it's like, I have to do things in a certain way. My Swish Sundays have to be, like, better than every single one. I have to outdo my last one. But it doesn't. It really doesn't. Yeah. And social media is really just about having fun at the end of the day and continuing to enjoy what you do.
I cannot stress that enough. So, okay, so now if you're ready to go back to it, like, what kind of lens are you looking at it from, right? Because, again, like, if we're talking about creative block and creative burned out, like, how are you sort of, like, getting yourself back into it?
For me, it's like getting into the rhythm of things. I almost take it as, like, you know, new year, everybody's talking about, like, resolutions and working out, and dieting is, you know, the biggest thing. It's like, I want to lose however many pounds. For me, it's like, how do I keep up this consistent schedule? Yeah. I do really like that satisfying feeling of, like, I uploaded consistently for 50 weeks, you know? So for me, it's that kind of challenge where it's like, how do I structure my content so that I can continuously upload? I don't have to worry about creatively being burnt out or sitting there every single week thinking about new ways to create content, because that's what Swish Sundays was. It was a really easy way to have content every single week without having to come up with a new concept every time?
Yeah, I feel like that's so hard though, because I feel like that's where, like, how do you balance that? Like, it's like a self-imposed pressure to perform. And nobody is going to tell you to do it except yourself.
Yeah.
But then how do you have the discipline to do it when nobody's telling you to do it? You know?
I think something that really helps is when you do set yourself like a, 1 month kind of challenge. That always got me kicked off, because by the end of the month, you always sort of start seeing results. You don't start seeing results after 2 weeks. Some people are like, oh yeah, I did it for 2 weeks. Didn't work out for me. Forget it. Like, this doesn't work for me. But after 1 month, I truly think that, if you've uploaded consistently lots of videos, lots of content for 1 month, that you start seeing results. You start seeing your numbers go up. You start seeing more engagement. You start feeling better about yourself, because you also look at your page, which is kind of like your portfolio, or like, your history of what you've done, and you're like, oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
Right? And it's finding those little things that keep you motivated and doing it.
March Meet the Makers coming up.
Yep,
oh my gosh, we're in January right now. Stop.
We every single time we go through that, we're like, oh my God, a month of posting every single day.
Oh my God.
But has it helped you? Do you feel like that's like
I think
helpful?
so.
At least to give you prompts, because sometimes you can't come up with like, what do I even post today? I don't even know. It's not good enough.
So March Meet the Maker, I'm terrible. Do you remember who the person is that started this?
Yeah, Joanne Hawker.
Okay, let's give her a shout.
Yeah, let me. I'll like link it wherever I can.
Yeah. So last year, so I think like you've been doing this for how many years now?
Like 2 years.
Okay. So basically, like Joanne came up with this like March Meet the Maker challenge for like digital content creators, and basically it's to help you generate content, and then every single day of March, like for 31 days, it gives you a prompt every day. And obviously, like, they're pretty general, so you can try to make it fit into like,
however you
any
want.
type of digital content creator. And so I was inspired by you last year to do one myself, because again, like we're in the middle of the pandemic, and then it's like, okay, like I need to start posting more consistently. And it's almost like letting go of that, again, like letting go of your ego of like how everything needs to be like a certain way, stylistic wise or like color wise, whatever it is, just post, like don't overthink it. And I just remember like, I was like pulling up like stuff from my archives where like, it's like, it's a grainy photo. Who cares? Like this is what I want to talk about right now. Exactly. And then so, I mean, I tried to post every day, but admittedly I didn't. I think I posted like 18 out of 31 days, which is still a lot because it's every other day for me. And so, that, I feel like that helps me in so many ways, because it almost like, when I decided to do the challenge, I accepted that I'm letting go of my ego. And so when I got to just like looking at the prompts, I sort of like removed that barrier of like, okay, I'm like, I don't know what to post. Like, oh my gosh, I gotta create a block right now. I'm just gonna post what it's telling me to do. I'm gonna look at my photos and see if there's anything that matches this prompt right now. Yeah. And then create a caption. And so I think it's almost like it made it easier for me, because, and maybe that's what some of us need sometimes, like as creative people, it's like being told what to do, because we're always so used to telling ourselves and telling other people what to do, that it's nice to have somebody tell you what to do sometimes.
Every now and then. And it's still kind of like within your control. You can still curate what you want to put up. Yeah.
Exactly. So, okay, we might have to do that again.
Yeah, I think so. Or some version of it at least. Yeah. I think I'm going to do that I'm going to try to do that for YouTube, whatever it is. Like, again, setting your goal and then figuring out, okay, how do I make this happen for a month? Let's try for a month first, and then see if this is like something we can do more sustainably over a long period of time. Yeah. But yeah, so what are other things that you do when you get creative block?
So, so I read a lot of like self-help books, right? And like,
that's so funny, because I'm like not a self-help book person.
Like,
I'm like the opposite.
I love like self-help books, business books, like give it to me.
Yeah.
And so, but then even so, like that helps me like just as an entrepreneur and as a person and like spiritually, like how to kind of like it's like my way of getting coaching without getting coaching from like a physical person.
Right.
But I was thinking about this last night, about like our topic today, like creative burnout. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. And then it got me thinking about this, like, so again, like for those of you who don't know me, like I'm Taiwanese American, right? I was born in Taiwan, but raised in America. And, so like there's still a part of me culturally that relates to, like my cultural background, even though like, again, like I consider myself like very American. But I remember like, I think this was like sometime in the 2000s. God, I'm totally dating myself. But like, where like I still have family and friends in Taiwan, right? So I go there and I visit them from time to time. And then there was this like lingo at the time, or like a slang at the time, where they were using to talk about young people, right? Young people as in like people who are fresh out of college, right? They're just
Young
getting their
adults.
first job, and like getting into society for the first time, as like a young professional. And they use this slang to describe them. And I'm just going to translate it into English because it still makes sense. Yeah. And basically they call these younger people, bruised strawberries, right? And I was like, wait, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And basically it just means that like younger people of that generation, like cannot, like are so sensitive, like can't handle like pressure at work, and like, basically are just like so like fragile,
right? Sensitive about everything,
right? And like, and it's like, and they can't like really become, like achieve their fullest potential because they're so hurt by everything, right?
Yeah, this sounds like what the older generation would consider us, I feel like. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And then so I just remember when I heard that for the first time, I was like, heck, I don't ever want to be a bruised strawberry. I don't ever want somebody to give somebody an opportunity to call me or view me as such. And I think, and weirdly enough, like I feel like that's been kind of like the driving force behind like whether or not I get burnt out. Because I sometimes maybe like being burnt out, I think I'm in a position right now where like I feel like it can be a conscious choice, because again, I'm working for myself now. I'm not working for somebody else. Where like feeling burnt out is no longer a choice because I have to meet the deadlines that was given. And so I think for me, like that slang that like really helps, like that model, really helped me in dealing with like my stress and how I'm feeling at the moment, because it's like, and again, like going back to like, another like really helpful model that I live by is, and I think I posted about this before and I love it so much, is he or she who has the greatest capacity for discomfort will rise the strongest and fastest. And I love living by that, because I think like every time I feel stressed and I feel burnt out, it's like, no, you have to push through it. You have to get through it, because like otherwise like you're not going to achieve your goals, right? And so I think like inherently there is just this kind of like I don't know, like fight, in me that kind of just like, for better or for worse, I feel like sometimes maybe I just need to like, okay, you need to just like settle down and like relax, but it's just like, I'm always so like wind up, because I'm like, no, I have to do it. I have to get through it. And I think that's like really relevant to like how I'm feeling right now with the project I'm working on, it's like, no, I just have to get through it, and so, because I'm not a bruised strawberry.
Yeah. So like maybe it's that you're a fighter, right? You're a survivor. And even though, there are hiccups, there are obstacles in what we do that might bring us down for a hot sec, we're very quick to be rationalizing it all and like recovering from that. So it's not necessarily that there's like no lower like dip or like, valley in all the hills and mountains that are happening. But like we get over it quickly because of that strong mentality that you got to keep going. You got to keep fighting in order to, kind of come out stronger. Right. So, but yeah, I think that's like very inherently like what our culture kind of tells us to do. We have to be really strong, and we have to, you know, keep fighting and keep working really hard, and, you know, overcome adversity and whatever comes our way. But yeah, and I think at the end of the day, it's just a matter of mindset, of perspective, of like, how do you rationalize your burnt out or your stress, and what do you do to cope with it? And, you know, we all have different ways of doing it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think part of that is like, I mean, listen to your body.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, I mean, here we are. We're talking about that, but we literally have no chill. But I mean, there are times when I would go home after a long day and I would just like melt into the couch. I'm like, okay, I'm tired today.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And can somebody bring me a cup of tea, please?
Yeah.
You know? And so I think just recognizing and listening to your body and knowing that like it's okay to like take a breather. Yeah. I mean, I need to practice that. We need to practice that. We need to both more.
Do it. Yeah. I'm guilty of it too.
But I think, but again, it's creative block and burned out, creative burnt out. I think it's natural.
Yeah.
And I think, again, like you and I have both gone through it so much, so many times that we know and understand that it's just a phase. And
and to be able to recognize it, right? To be able to learn what that looks like for you, how your body and how your mind like manifest that, and recognizing it and being that's like the first step to being able to treat it, and then you can move on. And it can be like, you know, more regular times. We can take breaks throughout the week, throughout, like we were saying, we need to like actually sit down, have lunch, sit down and like have a cup of tea or coffee during the day, just to like put ourselves back together, and then keep going. And then you can go on, you can run the whole marathon.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So real quick before we go though, let me ask you this. What do you do? Like, is there an activity or that you do when you're feeling burnt out creatively to just detach yourself from?
I'm laughing because I already know what question you're about to ask. I just do something else. I do something else that's fun. Like I told you right before Christmas, I wasn't making shoes. I was making something else. So whether it's like baking or, you know, doing your nails or doing your hair, whatever it is, do something that takes you away from what you're always obsessively working on, and then coming back to it and trying to get inspiration elsewhere. Go out for a walk in nature. Yeah. You know, do something that you haven't had the chance to do because you're so caught up in your own work.
Yeah.
What do you do?
For me, literally walk away from it. And like, so not this current project I'm working on, but the previous one I was working on, I was feeling definitely burnt out by it. Burnt out by it because I've been working on it for so long, and I've experimented so much with it, and it was just a whole thing.
It was like Murphy's Law. Anything that could go wrong went wrong.
Right. Yeah. And so, and I think, and so I literally like walked away from it. I finished it, walked away from it, and like, I didn't quite do this, but it's pretty much like I like put it in a box, closed it, didn't look at it for like 3 weeks. Yeah. Until the other day where I had to take it out again because I had to like put it in a box just to like see what it looks like. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this looks pretty good.
That looks like good. Yeah.
And so I think for me, like, that just demonstrated like, okay, you just need to walk away from it. Don't look at it. Don't think about it. Don't touch anything that's related to it for a while. Yep. And when you come back to it, you already instantly feel better about it, even though you've done nothing new to it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Coming back to it with fresh eyes and, you know, a new appreciation for what you've done, right? I feel like we don't do that enough. Yep. We don't give ourselves enough credit. Maybe we're burnt out because we're constantly trying to achieve and we're reaching, but we don't have that time to just reflect and be like, I'm proud of you. Proud of everything that you've done. Like, you made those shoes. That's incredible. That's so fantastic. Thanks. And everybody else is telling you, but you haven't had the chance to tell yourself, pat yourself on the back. Right? So, yeah.
Nice. Well, I guess that concludes our sesh for today.
Yes. And, you know, if you haven't listened to all of our other episodes, they're on Spotify, they're on YouTube. make sure to listen to those, subscribe, follow, and yeah, we'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye. Yay. How'd you feel
Good
about
work.
that one?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Good work.